Happy New Year, everyone. I know it's been a while, and this year has gotten off to an interesting start. So let's spend our day baking our worries away. All right, so today we're gonna make one of my favorite things to make this time of year, red velvet brownies. You're gonna grab your chocolate, about 4 to 5 ounces of it, as well as 6 ounces of butter, your salt, your baking powder. Of course, you're gonna grab your flour, your sugar, eggs, and the rest of the wet ingredients listed below in the comment section. Begin by putting the butter and the chocolate into a bowl together and melting them in the microwave for about a minute to a minute and a half. Then you're going to combine them by stirring them together until they blend without having any clumps or extra oil. And as promised, we have to add in some sweetness to this deal. So you're going to add in your sugar, as well as 2 items I forgot to add in before the sugar, your red food coloring and your, I was going to say red velvet food coloring, your red food coloring, which is easier to distribute before everything else is added, and your vanilla. Now, as a point of reference, while the recipe calls for 1 ounce of red food coloring, I find that adding about 2 makes it a little bit more of the color that I desire, like that nice rich maroon red, only because we have the chocolate, so it's gonna of course be very deep and rich in color. So you're supposed to add in your eggs one at a time, but I just did it this way. And as you can see, it didn't make much of a difference. So you're going to just fold those in and make sure they are evenly distributed as well. Now, once you see everything has gotten smoothly blended together, you're going to add in your dry ingredients, some sifted flour, as well as your salt and baking powder. And what you see me doing here is just smoothing those, or excuse me, blending those together. And blending might not be the right term, but putting those together so that way, once I put them into the bowl with the wet ingredients, it's just easier to go ahead and have to stir them less. And while earlier I put all the eggs in together at one time against the recipe's instructions, I highly recommend taking your time when it comes to adding in, well, folding in the flour. You want to make sure, especially if you're doing this like me, the old school way with a wooden spoon or the like and a bowl. Now, if you do have a stand mixer, adding all the flour in together will be completely fine, but I'm just doing it this way to demonstrate for people who don't have a hand mixer or a stand mixer. Now you want to make sure you don't have any clumps or lumps of any sort when you blend the ingredients together. Now what you're going to see me do next is something I meant to do earlier when I had before I added the flour in, but I forgot. So I did it then. I added in 2 tablespoons of hot coffee. This is not in the recipe, nor is it mandatory, but I do strongly recommend it only because it accentuates the flavor of the cocoa. Next, you're going to grab whatever whisk you can find and go ahead and do the final step of whisking everything together so it can be nice and smooth and easily transfer the batter to the pan. And for those of us who want to tone up those arms this year, this is perfect. Now, when you place the batter into the pan, you can opt to put it in there with any kind of fattening or shortening or fat to grease the pan. But what I'm going to do is put foil so that it will be easier to cut the pieces into comparable sizes later on once we remove it from the oven. So you can use foil, parchment. Don't use wax because that'll be an accident that is not needed or wanted. But use foil or parchment paper to line the pan, and it'll make everything so much easier once it's time to cut everything after they are done and cooled off. Now, prior to placing the batter into the pan, you're going to make sure your oven is on 350, not preheating to 350, but already warmed up to 350. And then you're going to put the brownies in the oven for 20 to 25 minutes. If your pan is comparable to this one, which is a 7x9 pan. If your pan is different dimensions than that, it should still take about 20 to 25 minutes, but I definitely recommend you removing them out of the oven before 30 minutes is up. To give everyone more confidence as well, I'm going to include the link to Southern Living's recipe for the Red Velvet Brownies. Now, I obtained this from a cookbook from 2013 because I like to go through the older Christmas cookbooks and see what they have each holiday. However, the link is still available on their site, so I'm going to leave it for everyone's reference. Now, once the brownies are done, you're going to go ahead and let them cool for about 2 to 3 hours. And then the fun part begins where we go ahead and cut them and serve them. So earlier I stated that you should use parchment paper or foil to line the pan, and as you can see here, it's going to be so much more of an easy cut, and it'll just be a thing of 1, 2, 3 of removing the sides and going ahead and cutting up the brownies. I almost called it cake. So then the next thing you're going to do is cut the brownies into the shape that you desire. I know Valentine's Day is right around the corner, so I do want to share, if you have heart-shaped cookie cutters or cake cutters, you don't really have to cut the edges off if you don't want to. It's your discretion, but the main objective is to make sure that every piece is similar in size, unless you're doing something where it's cute with different sized hearts or something like that. And speaking of Valentine's Day, this is a great dessert for it because you can do so many things with it. You can take it to the office if you have office festivities coming up. You can make it romantic and eat it with ice cream or a plethora of other things. But either way, this is a great way to celebrate the holiday or just make it this weekend for the snowstorm. So the final step, no matter what you do, is figure out how you're going to serve it. And right here, we're plating it up just so that it can be grabbed by anyone who wants one. And me being an amateur baker or a self-taught baker, I'm just playing around trying to see how I can make this look cute and not like Jenga. But whatever works for you, if you want to go ahead and leave them in the pan, if that works, hey, do it your way. But it just makes a cute little presentation. Well, I appreciate everyone who stuck through and watched the entire video, and I hope that if you make these, you enjoy them and everyone who eats them enjoys them too. Please be sure to share below how you choose to enjoy them, and I hope you enjoy a wonderful day. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe.